Hey everyone, this is another quick how-to video. If you've never been on one of my videos before, I try to describe how I'm using various Excel formulas to move data around or calculate things from a layman's point of view. There are many other videos about all of these things. I found it useful to hear some of them from that perspective, from not an expert, just someone using it in that particular way. Specifically if you're using a lot of fantasy football stuff, I also find it useful to hear about spoken about with the types of values that I'm trying to move around, and that's what I mostly do. So today what I wanted to do was a quick how-to video on using index and match formula to replace vlookup. It's got a few extra advantages. You can look from left to right or right to left. You can also look up and down. Vlookup is very much restricted to only looking from the left to the right, and I've got a video on how to use it. It's still really useful, but index match just has a little extra versatility with the way it works. So I'm going to skip over to a spreadsheet now and show you basically how I use it. Pardon me. So what I have up here is rookies from 2019, and what I was just adding in is team landing spot. I wanted to be able to see where each player was drafted. So one way to do that is to use vlookup. Which again is a really good formula, and I've done a video on it myself. But with vlookup, what you have to do is select from left to right. So you select the player column, you drag it over to the team column, select all those values, and tell it you want it to look how many columns over. In this case it's 4, I think. Not forgetting to put in the name of the person you're actually looking for right there. And it goes and it does the job, and that's great. But if you want to look from right to left, or even from, through rows, you want it to look up the 5th row versus the 1st row instead of just looking up through columns. VLOOKUP can't really help you to do that. So what I've been using more is something called index match, which is combining both the index formula and the match formula. And I got them written up here, roughly how you combine them. The first thing you do with the index formula is write index, obviously, and then you have to tell it the where you want it to look for a value. So in this case, it's actually column G on this particular sheet. Then you combine it with the match formula, which looks like this. You just write match in a bracket, because with the index formula, what you're meant to write it down here is a number. Tell it how many rows to look down. But since we don't know where that player is, what we do is ask it to search for it by matching the name. So with the match formula, what we do is, the first thing you do is select the name you're looking for. In this case, Kyler Murray, or in cell D2. And then where you want it to look for it. I want it to look in this particular column. And then you tell it you want it an exact match, not a close match. So you type in the number 0, you close the match formula out with a bracket, and then you close the whole thing off, the index formula, with another bracket. And that's it. You've combined index and match. When you look, it tells you where Kyler Murray's been drafted. And so that's the formula I use to pull it in here. Again, I've got it written up large here because I think this little box here can be hard to see with my resolution, and so I thought actually seeing where the formula is written in large print right here might be helpful. So again, just to reiterate, because it's really simple, it's really quick, it's very powerful and dynamic when you get the hang of it. And it's really simple to get there. With the index formula, the first thing that you want to write right here is you want to select the cells, and in this case I've selected a column, right? But because of the way index match is coded, you can actually select a row. You don't have to select columns, but that's not a versatility of it that I've had to use before, so I'm just concentrating on how I used it. And then instead of typing in a literal number, which row do you want to search in, what you do is you tell it to search for which row that you actually need it. And that's how you use the match formula. And with the match formula, you tell it what you want it to match. So in this case, it was cell D2, where Kyler Murray's name is. And then you tell it where to search for them. and again, in this case it was in row D because I was doing it in the very same spreadsheet. You can also obviously go to a different spreadsheet or a different tab, and a slightly different code will spring up. You simply do the same thing. You select where those names actually are in the sheet, and then use the number 0 so that you're telling it to find an exact match for that name. Then close it out with 2 extra brackets, and it goes and does it for you. It's really useful, it's pretty powerful, and it's really simple to write once you get the hang of it. Another example might be, what if I, like, without having to reorder the columns, what if I want to look up the players that was drafted by that team? Well, we're just doing the formula in reverse, so instead, index, I want to look up the player, so I'm going to select the player column right there, give it some dollar signs, and in the match formula, what I want it to match now isn't the player name. I actually want it to match team. So I'll tell it to look through the team column, and I'll tell it to look for whatever team you want to look for. In this case, I'll tell it to look for Arizona. So who did Arizona draft? Oh, look, they drafted Kyler Murray. And again, with vlookup, you would have to reorganize the columns. You'd have to put G in front of D so that you could look up left to right. With index match, you can look backwards. And again, if you're interested in it, you can also look up and down, but I mostly just use it through columns. Alright, so that's it, I think. That's how I've been using it. I think it's pretty useful, pretty simple to get the hang of once you start playing around with it. While vlookup's still a really useful tool and I use it a lot, I just enjoy the extra ability to be able to look left to right and then right to left without having to move anything else around. When I'm dealing with a big spreadsheet trying to pull in different information from different places, it's a lot easier for me to just be able to switch up the column names in the formula instead of having to reorganize the entire sheet to pull in the information I'm looking for. So index match, it's pretty good. If you have any other questions about it, comment on the video or contact me on Twitter at PAHowdy. Be happy to try and help you out. Thanks for checking it out. I hope it was helpful. If not, then really you probably didn't make it this far in the video, is what I'm guessing. But anyway, thanks again. I'll talk to you next time.